Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner. I am joined today by the mighty Laura Dodd, Forbidden Planet's head book buyer, where it is our privilege to be talking to one of our mutual favourite authors, Jonathan Stroud. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, it's wonderful to be with you.
And it's wonderful for you to join us. We really appreciate it, mate. And today we're here to talk about the Outlaws Scarlett and Brown. So what can you tell us about the Outlaws Scarlett and Brown?
Wow, well, I funnily enough, curiously enough, I actually have a copy here which I can hold up in full view.
Which, by the way, you can pre-order from the links attached to this video right now.
Fantastic. How about that? Smooth.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hopefully the start of a new fantasy series. It's set in an apocalyptic, post-apocalypse Britain. So sometime in the far future, there have been all sorts of strange things happened. Many changes. The landscape has altered. London, I'm afraid to say, including Forbidden Planet, has disappeared into a kind of lagoon. And there are various monsters and cannibals roaming about, and the surviving humans are hanging out in small towns, fortified against these various creatures. And only a few people actually are brave enough to go out and explore. And among them are Brown, and Scarlett is an outlaw. She's young and a bit of a chip on her shoulder, very formidable. Early on, she meets this young, mysterious character called Albert, who seems totally useless, but there's more to him than meets the eye, and their adventures progress from there.
Fantastic. Laura, I know you got a bunch of questions.
I do. So it does almost have like a futuristic Western vibe. Have you always been a fan of Westerns?
I've always enjoyed Westerns. I was brought up on those Saturday and Sunday afternoon BBC Two. There'd always be some kind of, with guys, high noon shooting at each other. Falling in a kind of slightly unconvincing way to the dusty floor. For all of us, Westerns are sort of part of the culture, and it was a desire to sort of just see what a British Western would be like. That was one of the early things that got me going on this. So yeah, we when we first meet Scarlett, she wakes up. She's got a camp by a lake, and she wakes up, and there are 4 dead men lying around her that she'd killed when they attacked her in the night, and that immediately gives you this sort of slightly Sergio Leone type vibe, which it's only one of the vibes in the book, but it's one that I enjoyed playing with.
Is this a planned series, a trilogy? Like, how many books are going to be following their adventures?
There's definitely going to be 2, because I am contracted for 2. And in fact, this morning, before talking to you guys, I was busy scribbling away on the second one. And my plan is, probably a trilogy. I think there's a natural story arc which I'm following. So fingers crossed, we'll have 3 in the end.
I actually can't wait for that. And trilogies work so nicely with the pseudo-Western genre as well. You mentioned Sergio Leone, for example.
Yes.
Now, something you mentioned which really strikes a chord with me is watching the Saturday and Sunday afternoon matinees of Westerns and all those classic films. But something you don't know this, but I know this, something you and I have in common is that you spent a lot of time in hospitals as a kid. So did I. I was hospitalized a lot under the age of like 13. And certainly one of the reasons I ultimately became a kind of movie journalist is because I watched so many of those matinees while stuck in a hospital bed. And I love reading so much because all you can do, certainly back then. So in that time that you spent, and we can compare notes off camera as to why that was, what books did you discover during those periods of time?
It was you're absolutely right. It was quite a key sort of formative period. I think I was maybe slightly younger than you. I think it was between the ages of about, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was that sort of point. So it was good because obviously by that point I was reading. So just come in and dump vast quantities of books and comics on my bed. Thinking back on it, what I really remember, I used to love getting my my Asterix books. Asterix fan, and they used to give me a lot of pleasure. And when I look at some of the books I've written as an adult, the Bartimaeus series, which obviously they're not comic books, but they have a huge amount of a sort of comic book action, visualization of action, which undoubtedly comes from the fact that as a kid I just devoured this kind of thing. And you're so right that the escapism that you get when you're in bed and you basically can't even walk to the toilet, but you're able then to enter the book and head off to other lands. That's a powerful drug which you stays with you forever, I think.
I think that is so true. I think that's so true. Now, Laura and I know you've got more of a question about this. We're talking about the fact that you worked as an editor at Walker. Isn't that right, Laura?
Yes, yeah, and obviously they publish your books as well. So.
Yes, that's a mysterious connection. Yeah, it's like it's gone round full circle actually, because I worked at Walker in the early 90s. Which shows how ancient I am. And in fact, while I was there as an editor, I started writing books which they published. And but as an editor, I was obviously taught how to play around with words and look at stuff and not be afraid of ripping it up and starting again, or fiddling with it, or shortening it, and all these techniques which, as an editor, I used on other people. I use it on myself now, and that's been absolutely sort of brilliant skill set to have for the last 20 years of being freelance.
We were also kind of thinking about adaptations. So off camera, we were talking about comics, and you're obviously being a long-time fan. Have you ever thought about comic adaptations for any of your books?
Well, in fact, I had one, which was the first book of the Bartimaeus series, The Amulet of Samarkand, was made into a graphic novel, which was absolute thrill for me. It is the nearest thing you can that I've got so far to having a movie adaptation of that series. That just visual explosion, absolute delight to have that done. Only the first book, unfortunately, so far. But yeah, adaptations are always exciting. Currently, my Lockwood & Co series, which is a different one altogether about ghost hunters, and that one is being made into a Netflix series, which is, that's hugely exciting. I think that
must feel amazing.
It does. It's a real delight. Obviously, I mean, when I saw the rights to Bartimaeus back in 2002. The movie rights were sold then, and I thought, oh great, we're going to have a movie, and it's never happened. It hasn't happened yet. So I'm aware these things take time, but I'm delighted actually that Complete Fiction and Netflix are teaming up to make Lockwood.
I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, the great thing about getting the streamers on board, whether it's Netflix or one of the other guys, if you get a deal with them, your stuff's going to get made, and it's going to come out because they're thirsty for content. It seems to me that their existence and their commissioning of movies and shows has sped up that the development hell time that you'd often get with a movie, where everybody's chasing a certain number of movie slots every year. Netflix is hungry for content, so once they're adapting your work, it's going to come out, which I think must be very exciting. I'm excited as a fan. So
I'm dancing with delight. And you're right. And I think it suits the kind of stuff that I do, where all these series, and Scarlett and Brown is going to be the same. That I spend quite a lot of time trying to invent the world and figuring out, okay, how does this world get to be, and why there are these cannibals running around the home counties of England, and you build up this sort of quite a deep reservoir of story, which then potentially would work really well in a kind of streaming context, because you've got content, you've got depth of content that you can hopefully screen with. That's the plan anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think I remember there was a competition a few years back for the Lockwood series for someone was it an idea for a ghost for the Hollow Boy? How did that come
that's
about?
Well remembered. That's that's right. In fact, that's reminded me that we did one for Bartimaeus as well, where we asked people to think of a new type of genie or a new type of spirit, and I was going to put it in the book. And in both cases, it was great because we had lots of kids writing in, drawing these different ghosts or genies, whichever one it was, describing them. And there were some that were funny and some that were scary. And in the end, I had to go through, and it was tough. It was a tough call, actually, tough gig. I think with Lockwood, I chose. I think the kid called her Arabella or something, and it was basically it was a classic female scary female ghost with lots of long hair, and she looked very sort of innocent, and she was reading a book or something. And then when you got close, of course, suddenly everything, the hair sort of sprang back, and she sort of leapt at you. And sure enough, a ghost answering to that description was inserted into the hollow boy. It's quite a fun thing, actually, because then as the writer, I get the challenge of trying to figure out where this character, where this ghost, where this genie will go. And so far I've always managed it. So I'll have to do the same thing for Scarlett and Brown 3 or something. Clearly there's a pattern here.
Right on. Now we're racing towards the end of our time together, but I know that Laura's got one more question about Bartimaeus for you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah. So I was a children's bookseller at Waterstones for many years, and Bartimaeus was always a favourite of mine to recommend. And I think part of it, especially, was how you kind of delved into the kind of the ethics and humanity of kind of the magicians and the demons. What made you kind of delve into their psyches? Because it was very, I think it was one of the first series at the time that really kind of explored, good versus evil in that kind of setting.
Yes. Oh, that's right. I had a lot of fun with that. The very first idea that I had for Bartimaeus was quite it was just a simple sort of twist, because that was the days when Harry Potter was very much the well, it still is, but Harry Potter was very much the thing. And I was thinking, well, could you do a story about magicians that was fundamentally different? And that initial idea was that I would make my kid magician into the bad guy, and the hero was going to be a demon or a genie, and that was the crux of it. And from that, when I started writing it, and these characters collided with each other, I realized actually there was quite a sort of rich thing. You could create a whole hierarchy of genies and spirits. You could have a whole hierarchy of magicians, and everyone's kind of jostling for their own position in their own little world. And they're kind of, everyone's got their own chips on their shoulders they've had for, in some cases, thousands of years. And it was a real, really fun thing, actually, over several books to just explore this. So by the end, it was all about shades of grey, and it wasn't, oh yeah, the magicians were all bad, and no, it was a much more complicated thing. And in the end, it was all about slavery and the class system, and how do you reconcile these things? I had a great fun doing it, and I over in the corner here, I've got a file with the words Bart 5 scribbled on it.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go, exclusive. And I would love to revisit that world. Every now and again, I go off and scribble little ideas and scenes there. So fingers crossed, I'll produce something.
That's amazing. That's going to be the title of this interview. Jonathan Stroud announces Bartimaeus 5.
That's right.
Actually, that's not true. It's going to be Jonathan Stroud discusses the Outlaws Scarlett
Brown.
That's right,
Scarlett and Brown.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
Yeah, which there we go. Available right here on the pre-order links.
Forbidden Planets.
First in that trilogy. And Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful to meet you and lovely to chat with you.
Oh, and you guys too. Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to make the pilgrimage to your stalls very soon. When
you do, we'll see you there, mate. Come and do a signing for us.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, that's a promise. Thanks so much.
Take care, Jonathan.
Thank
All
you.
the best.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.